Hello and welcome back to the devlog for my game, the Commandonuts, created in Unity. In the last episode I made the base for the item system, and today I'm going to be looking at the inventory and drops. So last episode sorted out the drops, so when you kill an enemy, what do the items spawn, but it's boring at the minute, so we're going to give this a bit of a makeover. To make the drops appealing, the items need to pop more, with the higher quality items getting larger effects to emphasise their rarity. To demonstrate what I mean, on the left down here is Minecraft. You kill a mob, drops an item, great. Down on the right is Wonderlands, the successor to Borderlands, which is known for loot explosion. It's quite clear which game has given focus on this feature and entices you with shiny things, so let's do that. The first thing I want to add is motion. When an item is dropped, I plan on making it fly out in a random direction in an arc. Biggest hurdle for my project is the fact I'm not actually using gravity, so I kind of have to figure out a way to fake it nicely. When an item drops, it needs to pick a point nearby, calculate an arc, and then move to the object. So now, it's time for maths. To achieve this, we simply need a random vector between -1 and 1 for the x and y, normalize it, and times it by the radius we want to cover. Then we just need the arc from the starting point to the end. Using some number wizardry, I can now get any position across the arc using a number between 0 and 1. For the item movement, it needs a value counting up using delta time. To use this function, when the value reaches 1, end the movement. And now, the drops have gone from this to this. Much better. But it's still looking very bland, so the next thing is to add some particles and colour based on the rarity. Initially I was using an enum to set the rarity, but now that's all going in the bin. And instead I decided to make the rarities into scriptable objects so I can set the colour and add any other features in the future. Basically everything I've made up until this point regarding rarity was cut and painfully rewritten. My approach seems alright for now and will definitely not cause me any headaches in the future. The way it works now is that instead of the item generating its own rarity when it drops, the drop manager now does that for it and stores the rarity list itself. Keep it all nice and contained. I tweaked the constructors for the items so it allows rarity and bam, it works. Now to add visuals. There's a few ways to demonstrate rarity. It could be a vertical line that glows with the colour, change the text colour, outlining the sprite, having the item give off particles in different colours, or a combination of those. For my game, I'm going to try out a glowing outline effect with background particles, with the higher rarity ones being more intense. To achieve this, I'm going to add a new object onto the item drop prefab called rarity, and add a light and particle system as children. I then need a class with a function to control these with just a rarity passed in. And here's what I've come up with for the code. When the setup function is called, it stores the rarity and sets up both the light and particles. For the light, it first enables it and sets the colour and intensity to the values defined earlier in rarity. For the particles, currently what I've done is again enable and play the particles. I then set the colour to a gradient between the rarity colour and a slightly lighter version just to give some variance. This is done using my utils class. And then the emission rate is changed to emit more particles for the higher rarities. And this is what the drops look like now, and you know what? I'm happy with it. The visuals will be reworked in the future with the graphical overhaul, but for now, the backend all works great, and that was my main focus for now. So now, the inventory. As you saw last episode, you can add new items, but they don't stack, and there's no way of seeing them outside of the inspector. So that's what I plan to add today. As only the resources can stack, I simply need to add some logic when the item is added to the inventory that checks whether or not the item is a resource, then checks if it already exists in the inventory, and if it does, simply add the count to the existing stack. If the item doesn't already exist, then it just adds it as normal. Here's the code to combine stacks. If the item is a resource frame, I simply iterate through the current inventory, and if any of them match the item, I adjust the stack to that amount. Otherwise, it keeps going on as normal. I also added a small block of code that checks whether or not a weapon is currently equipped when a new one is picked up, and if there's not, then it equips the new weapon. Finally, if neither of these happen, a new item is added to the inventory. And the final thing to do today is create a placeholder UI element, so you can see what's currently stored in the inventory. I'm not great at UI, but this is what I've added that simply shows a sprite, the name, and count if applicable. Obviously this is far from finished, it's just something so I can see what's working without having to look into the inspector all the time. Okay, here is a final demo of all the parts I've added up to this point. As you can see, the items fly out nicely, and the items that have a rarity look quite good with their particles and lighting. It really draws your eyes to them already. And the items are now visible in the UI, which makes testing a whole lot easier too. Overall, I'm happy with the game's state so far, and I think it's time to create a test level full of enemies, item spawns, and a varied environment to give the game a more complete feeling already. But that's for next time. For now though, thank you very much for watching. The support on the videos has been amazing already. Leave a comment with some suggestions or feedback, like and subscribe for more scuff content, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.